All right. Well, looks like we're live, you guys. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes and get my stuff a little bit organized here. We're going to be sewing a backpack today. Super excited about that. But I know it takes a few minutes for everybody to kind of gather and join our live. This is Sew Together Live with Shannon Fabrics. I'm Ajaire Parello. We have a few cameras set up today, so you can see all these pieces of the backpack. And of course, one of them wasn't working an hour ago, but it's working now. So we got it all set up, but there's always a scramble when you go live, right? We also have with us in the background today, so just a voiceover, not on camera, one of our other ambassadors, Lisa Lewick. Questions out in the comments. If I'm not seeing them because I'm running around sewing, Lisa can help out and say, hey, Ajaire, there's a question. So we're happy to have a fun little voiceover today. We're going to try that out and see how it goes. How's everybody doing with snow out there? I know most of the country got some sort of system this week. How are you guys? We got, I don't know, 7 inches, 10 inches, a bunch, and then ice on top of it. We're in Maryland. So it was enough to cause some delays. No school for the kids and all that. But not quite as much as they had originally predicted.
We did get.
So what was it, Lisa?
We got 10 inches in Indianapolis.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's about like, I feel like we had that in snow and then the ice came and just pushed it all down, scrunched it up. So it didn't really seem like all that we got when it came down to it. All right. I'm just checking that I've got everything. I am going to want my iron later. So let me grab that real quick. So we're just going to talk today about bags. We're going to sew one here. We're making the Little Lizard King Vada Backpack. It comes in 3 different sizes. It's super cute and it's got tons and tons of details. So you can make it as detailed as you want. I've made this bag, I mean, 4 times maybe. So several times, and not including today's. And I've made it in a bunch of different sizes. So the biggest size I'll show you, I have my oldest daughter who's in high school. I made it for her a couple of years ago, and it's held up so well that we didn't even bother doing a new backpack this year because it actually held up. Let's see, one of the lights went off, I think. I'm trying to think, did it get darker? What's going on? I think it came right back on. Sorry about that. Oh no, this one went dimmer. Let's see. Technology, guys. It's always something. Make that one a little bit brighter. I wonder if it's just, that's not plugged in. All right, bear with me just for a second while I try to get this iron set up. I'll plug it in over here. All right. Yeah, something. Sorry, just looking at my lights here. I feel like something went dimmer. Okay. So how are you guys doing out there? I think we should just get started. Like I said, the pattern is the Vada Backpack pattern by Little Lizard King. Little Lizard King has a lot of great patterns out there, a lot of dresses and things like that for little kids. But then she also started designing things for adults too. So she's got a whole line called Styla or Stila, S-T-Y-L-A. And it's a really great line that works for adults. So this backpack could be used for kids, but it's really like an elegant looking adult backpack too. So this is the big size that I did years ago for my oldest. It's got all the bells and whistles. This was done using C3. So I used a black C3. The checkered one that you're seeing is just, I think it was like a poplin or something. I thought it'd be fun to have pop of color. She was in middle school, so of course she wanted everything just to be black or one solid color at the time. She wasn't into any patterns. So I was able to get away with doing this for her. She wasn't thrilled about not having just solid colors, but then she really liked this when she saw it. So as you can see, there's all sorts of zippers involved. The lining has zippers and pockets and all sorts of things. So this is the big size. We're going to make the smallest size. And there's one size in between. So when you see this today, you'll see that there's one that's sort of the midi size too, but we're doing the biggest. We're doing the smallest today. Ooh, that might be it. I think that one low. That helped with the lighting a little bit. Okay, good. So we're going to jump right in. Again, Lisa's here. If any questions, if I'm not seeing you guys answer them, then she's there to help. So what we're going to start with is just sort of talk and what you do about the options, because that can be crippling to some people. In the pattern itself, she goes through, you know, you can do, let me show you on this one. You can have these 3 pieces. So you've got this pocket here, which has like a little magnetic snap closure thing. You've got a pocket here. And what you could do is you can make this whole thing solid if you want it. You don't have to have all these pockets, but they're options. So you've got to decide, do you want the little snap slip pocket? Do you want this front pocket? There's this pocket here. And then again, I said before, the back pocket. So you kind of make all those decisions. Then you need to decide, well, where do you want which fabrics? So it can be kind of fun to plan these things out. And so I'm using this gorgeous quilting cuddle. I mean, it's so beautiful, you guys. This is one of the newer collections in Quilting Cuddle. It's so soft. And remember, Quilting Cuddle is that 1.5 millimeter pile. So it's the shorter length than the C3 you saw on that black backpack. I'm going to use some accents of Bellflower Quilting Cuddle. It's this really beautiful color that really, I mean, it goes so nicely with it. And then inside the lining, I'm also going to do some accents of this leaf Quilting Cuddle. It's a really bright color, but I thought it was beautiful with it. And so, I mean, that's what I'm using there. You could just do 2 colors. So then I had to try to decide, well, what colors do I want where? And so now I'm going to show you, I'm going to go to the overhead view, which is not the best today because you had to scramble a little bit, but let me see. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Go to that overhead view. That's the thing. All right, so this is my overhead view. I had to do my substitute camera over here because the other one was, the fixture for it broke. So what I decided was that I'm going to have the, so this, pretend this is the front. Then I was going to have the upper like that. So this is actually going to be the back, the upper piece. And then we will have, oh, it's in my little tissue bag. Where'd that bag go? Oh, here it is. It's all these pieces over here. I filed them away to be a little more organized, but I realized I wanted to show you. Then I quilted this little piece here to be in the middle. Again, this is not an ideal. I'm trying to get it to focus a little better for you guys. Didn't really work. And then the slip pocket like that. And then we'll do the little binding there. So I thought that was really cute. So one thing you can do with bags, I'm going to go back to the other camera because this one's a little fuzzy, is you can really change things up. So I thought it would be fun to take that one piece, and all I did was I just put 2 pieces together of the quilting cuddle. You could put foam in there, you could put some batting. I didn't want to make the front super duper heavy, so I didn't go crazy with it, but you can just add some little patterning. All I did for that was just some subtle quilting. I mean, just real, you could do anything you wanted there, but I thought that would be fun for the front of the bag to add something a little different. So we're going to jump right in. I have all the instructions here. She did a great job with the instructions to make it super easy to sew. And then we're going to get started. So the first thing we're doing is we're going to do the lining zipper pocket. Again, that is this one back here that's inside. So there's a zipper pocket here and it's attached to the front. So we're going to start with that. And this is a good place to show where the like inserting all the zippers and all of that stuff happens. So let me get those pieces out real quick. Just slide this over. All right, so with my camera a little bit smaller now, using this backup one, having to adjust a little bit. So put that stuff to the side. So that one is there. Look at my thread. So just like with all cuddle projects, we're going to use a lot of the same things we use all the time. So we're going to be using the 9014 stretch needle. So that 9014 stretch needle, that's huge. We always do that with the cuddle. Even with the quilting cuddle, we found that one works the best. So we're going to, we have that in the machine already. We're going to use polyester thread. I'm using this Gutermann one today, 100% polyester. I'm using it because I had a matching color. There's other threads we love too, but that one will work fine for today. And then zippers. You can use all sorts of different zippers. This is just one that I got in a zipper lot years ago. It just, the green color works pretty well with this. But for the outside of the bag, the exterior ones, I've got some fancier zippers. So we'll talk about zippers and zipper pulls when we get to doing the zipper gusset later. So for now, I'm going to put that overhead camera on again. Sorry about it not focusing as well. Let's see if I can get it to focus a little better. Oh, that's all right. Okay, so we've got this little facing here, and that's one of the pattern pieces. So make sure I'm going in the right direction. And it has you, make a little box on there. Then on this pattern piece here, what we're going to do is I'm going to take the piece, and now this is the actual pattern piece for this. And what's going to happen is we're making an opening here that the zipper is going to show through. But we're not doing it from this side, but I'm actually on this cuddle going to mark on this side, and I'll show you why. So with cuddle, this pattern would have you mark it right on the front. But with cuddle, if I try to mark it there, it's not going to really line up as nicely because the cuddle moves on us, that pile. So instead, I mark it on the back. This one's been marked on the back, but it's meant to be marked on the back. So we're going to have, basically that's going to go on like that. We'll stitch around it, and then we'll turn this to the inside to create the opening. But the way I do that is I'll take my pins and I'm going to stick it through one of the corners of this box, like that top corner. And then I'm going to try to match it up to the top corner right straight through to the back there. So I can feel with my fingers that these are lining up pretty nicely there. And then I'm just going to kind of tack that piece down there. I'm going to do the same thing over here with this top corner of the box. And I'm going to push it through back here where I can see that grid. So this is just a way you can kind of get things to be about where they need to be without having to draw right on the front of this bag. So then you can just sort of manipulate it to look nice. And then I'm going to pin this here and see if it catches. Yeah, see, it's catching right there at that bottom corner there. And the key with this is that if this did slide up slightly or slide down slightly, it would be just fine because the actual pocket that's going to be created in there is this big. And you can see this pattern is this big. So there is some room for the pocket to, if it slid down a little bit. This is just the ideal spot for it. So this method will give you a nice, locate it really nicely there. Lines, you just want it to be relatively straight across and then not too far this way or too far that way, if that makes sense. So like as you go through here, you can pin, like I put a pin right there, and I can see that's further down than it needs to be. So then I slide this up. See how you can just maneuver that. So I'm going to stitch this. What I'm going to do is stitch all the way around this box. And we'll talk about the stitch settings that I'm going to use over there. I'm going to move over to the sewing machine view. First, I'm going to change out my thread. I have a black in here right now because I may be using black later. but we're going to put that green in there. Again, we have the 9D14 stretch needle. We are using that polyester thread. And we didn't talk about stabilizers. So one thing with making a bag is you want the bag to be, let me pop back here just for a second while I'm getting this thread on. So you want the bag to be relatively stable and you don't want it all floppy. And we love Cuddle and it has some stretch to it. And as thick as it is or whatever, like not thick, but the as much pile as it has, it's not super duper stiff or weighty. So what we're going to do is add some structure to it. So what I use is I use basic SF101, which is the Pellin product. We use that often. You've probably heard us talk about SF101 before. And what it does is it helps to control the fabric a little bit. It's used in clothing sewing often, just to make things like collars stiffer. We use it with C3 often, and I'm using it here with the Quilting Cuddle to help, well, stabilize. That's what it's called, right? A stabilizer. It helps the fabric from overstretching. So you can see here, it's white. It's right on the back of this. It helps to keep that fabric from stretching. This is just the width of the fabric, and you know Cuddle. Cuddle will stretch. Even the Quilting Cuddle will stretch a little bit, and this fabric's not going anywhere. It's very lightweight. It's still foldable. Like you can still do stuff with it. But see how it has a little bit of a crunch to it? So what I do is I actually put it in a whole piece. So I have this big piece of Quilting Cuddle here. And I have a bolt of SF101, and I'll just go and I'll take it in sheets and I'll put it over the ironing board, backside up. Let me show you what my bolt looks like. So it's just a bolt of the SF101. You could get yardage, but I use it all the time for clothes sewing. So it's got the little bumpies on one side, and those bumps are where the glue is that fuses. So I put it with the backing up on my ironing board, and then I'll put the SF101 down and I'll spray it. I use a little spray bottle like this, just spray it with water. You want to get it damp before you press it together. SF101 can shrink a little bit, and obviously the Cuddle doesn't shrink. It's 100% polyester, but it can shrink a little bit. So to have the best success with it, you get it damp first, and as you're pressing it with the iron, that sort of dries it off, and any kind of bunching or shrinking that it would want to do, it helps to eliminate that, so that then when you wash something later, and we will wash these bags, that's part of the lovely thing about making bags with Cuddle is they're completely washable. You're not going to have any issue with it crinkling or being misshapen, like sometimes can happen with SF101. So yep.
Can you tell us how long you leave the iron?
Yeah. So, and I use, this is Quilting Cuddle, but even with the C3 that you saw in the other bag, I'm going to use that kind of medium heat. So not all the way up to like top of linen cotton setting, but above the wool setting. So a pretty decent amount of heat. Sorry, it looked like my camera. Touching it like you're not ironing, you're pressing down and you're just holding in spots. And I would say about 10 seconds. So this takes a little bit of time to get the whole across the width of the fabric done. And so I'll just use whatever's on my ironing board. Then I shift it up and put more of the SF101 down, spray again, and then do whatever's on the ironing board there. And so I just kind of put some music on or put a podcast or something. And that's always this prep work that I do well before I'm ever going to cut anything out. So I know it's all ready to go. The reason I'm doing it in big sheets like this for something that has a lot of pieces like this bag, or also maybe a stuffed animal, if you're going to stabilize it, we don't always stabilize those, but it depends on what you're doing. The reason I do it in these sheets versus cutting out the interfacing and then pressing the two shapes together is it really makes sure that that is going all the way to the edges. It's a lot easier to cut everything out once it's fused together. And the other thing is it also makes it easier to cut the Cuddle because you're not getting any stretch when you're cutting the Cuddle pieces out. We're still cutting from the back. You can draw your pattern pieces out on the back, but it really just helps to stabilize the whole thing. And there's not a ton of waste. I've found that if I have some pieces that have the SF101 that is a scrap piece now, those could be used in things like appliques, and it just gives a little structure to it. So you can always still use those scrap pieces. I just kind of figure out about how much I'm going to use. I'll maybe put the pattern pieces out on the cuddle and then figure out about how far down I want that SF101 to go. And like I said, I just do it in the big sheets. So one other thing about stabilizer is that for this pattern, I've had no problem with using just the SF101 in every piece gets SF101. Even the pattern itself will say, if you're doing cotton, no matter what you're doing, every piece should have some sort of stabilizer for this, because you want things like the straps to be sturdy. Now, these straps only have SF101 in them, so you can see they're soft and they're pliable, but they're very strong. This has been through 8th grade, 9th. Still, I mean, it's a little bit dirty. That's why I have it, is because I told her I would wash it. But really held up. The only extra places we're going to put more structure is the back panel. So this whole back gets a little extra. The gussets. So this part here is called the gusset. That's where the zipper, and then there's a gusset on the bottom. So those 3 pieces will get extra stabilizer. And what I like to use specifically for this backpack is Decoville Light. So that looks like this. You can use other things. You can use a fusible fleece. What I like about this is it's very thin. It's fusible. It's pretty stiff. It's not thick, so it's easy to sew through, but it gives some extra shape. So with that, you wouldn't want to do the whole backpack that way, because what happens with that is it would be too stiff. So like this is the bottom gusset piece. This pattern is great because it actually has 3 pattern pieces that are specifically for extra stabilizer. So she already took out the seam allowances for you. If you have a backpack or bag pattern that doesn't have pieces just for stabilizer, all you're going to do is just cut off the seam allowance before you put it in place. You just don't want all that extra bulk in the seams. So this pattern's awesome because she did all that ahead of time. So even like the piece for the back has all the little seam allowances taken out of it. So those 3 pieces, I added a little bit of that Decoville Light. Again, I did that. It's pressing it down. I spray the Decoville Light beforehand. They say use a damp washcloth to cover it, but instead I spray it. And this one I think is 7 seconds. And then you're technically supposed to leave it flat for I think 30 minutes to make sure it's fully set. I've used it in the past just right away, but obviously these have been sitting out for a while, so they were done yesterday. So
could you tell us again the name of that product?
Decoville Light, like Decovil, Decoville. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. It can be found online. It can be found. I've seen it at quilt shops. Like I said, you could also use something like a fusible fleece. You could use the Biani Soft and Stable, but that would maybe give it a little too much structure. It might it would be nice, but it might be a little harder to because it gives so much thickness. We're going to put lots of layers on here. So, all right, well, I'm going to get started sewing this. If you guys have more questions about, because I know that's like a little bit confusing with bags. There's so many different parts of it. I just kind of enter into it thinking this is fun because we get to choose all this stuff and you get to experiment a little bit and use some products. Like I'm not using Decoville Light very often. I'm pretty much only use it if I am sewing bags. So it's kind of fun to use different things like that. But yeah, if you've got more questions, I'm happy to answer them. So I have my stitch setting up to a 4. It's actually at 4.1 right now, but that's fine too. I'm going to stitch all the way around this. Actually, I might bring it down just a little bit because this is pretty detailed work. Hold on one second. I want to make sure that this step that she's doing it the way my brain wants to do. Okay, good. So I am stitching all the way around this. Sorry, I haven't looked at the pattern since yesterday, so I want to make sure that I'm not telling you something different. What I like to do is I'm actually going to start around here. I don't like to start right at a corner because then you have to meet exactly at a corner. We're going all the way around this box. Sometimes when you're doing these welt zipper openings like this, you'll only do the bottom and the top and leave these open. But for this pattern, we're going all the way around. So I like to start someplace sort of in the middle so that I meet the stitching really nicely. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I'm not getting in your way of seeing. And then I'm just stitching all the way around with a straight stitch. Make sure I like to have my needle in the down position so that it's down when I stop. I'm just trying to get pretty close to those lines. Again, this is not a situation where if I'm slightly off the line, it's going to be the end of the world, because this, the zipper, this is inside the bag, so it's a pocket for the inside. So honestly, it's a good place to start because no one's really going to see this except for the person that's using it. So if you're nervous about installing zippers, it's a good place to start on this project, because this one is going to kind of be hidden later if you do any kind of mistakes.
Are you using a shorter stitch length for this?
I'm not really. Normally you would, but because it's Cuddle, I'm still at like a 3.8. You can check with your machine and see what's going to give you the nicest stitch. But yeah, normally if I was doing this on like a cotton or something, then I would shorten my stitch when I do this kind of box. All right, so let me clip those threads. All right. I'll be tossing my threads. So now back over here. So in this box, we're now going to want to clip this. I'm going to draw it really quick so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe if we go, might try to do this view. I don't know if you can see this. So I'm just going to draw in here. You're really just going to clip through the center, and then you're leaving these little V's or Y's at the end. Sorry, I'm trying to get to where you can see that you want to make sure you leave fabric there. So what I do is I clip, again, I kind of start in the center. These are not the best scissors here. These are more like snips, but they do cut nicely once you get through. So I'm trying to get through all 3 layers. Use my...
Just to confirm, Ajaire, you used a stretch needle?
Oh yeah, 9014 stretch needle. Yep. Same as we'd always use for Cuddle. And that goes even when I did that C3 bag where I had, you know, the poplin or whatever. I still used the stretch needle when I was putting them together, just because I felt like that was going to give me the best success.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm snipping these. And you want to make sure you're getting through all the layers here. Sorry, I keep moving the wrong direction. So I'm going to clip, but I'm not going to go all the way to the end. I'm going to just go out like the V shape there, and you're going to clip. You don't want to accidentally get your stitches, so make sure you don't get the stitches, but clip right to the stitches. And then I'm going to go the other direction. And I just kind of clip down through here. The same thing, just leaving, making that little Y V shape there. All right, and then because we've just trimmed that and there's some Cuddle there, I'm going to use the vacuum really quick just to vacuum that edge up. I don't want any excess Cuddle dust if I can help it. You can also just shake it a little bit, but I just want to make sure we're not getting any excess Cuddle dust anywhere. All right, so now you've got this shape. What we're going to be doing is we're turning this whole thing to the back to create a nice little rectangular opening. The way I do that is I actually will grab my iron, have it up on this. All right. Let me grab a pressing cloth too. I don't always use a pressing cloth with Quilting Cuddle. I found it works pretty well. So I want to get my iron in the right spot. But I will grab a pressing cloth just to make sure. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, here's one. Okay. So what I like to do for this is I'm going to, with it flat like this, I'm going to press this up right here in place before I turn it under. And what that's going to do is it's going to give a nice little crisp line there that wants to turn under. So kind of across the way. Because I'm using the pressing cloth, you can't see it as well, what I'm doing. But see how that's pressed up now? And that's a nice crisp line. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. It's just press it up. Again, it's going to give us a crisp line so it'll turn under nicely later. All right, let's get that in there. There we go. And then those ends will go under there. So now we're pushing it to the back, pull it through.
Was that just an extra sheet used for a pressing cloth, Ajaire?
Yep, I just cut out, like I use a pinking shear, and I just cut out extra old sheets or old cotton fabric just to have as a pressing cloth. Like I said, I probably don't need it with this quilting cuddle, but I do have the iron at kind of a high setting right now. It's higher than I normally have it just because there's so many thick layers once we get going in this backpack. So it's probably best to use all right, so I pressed it once like that into shape. Now I'm going to bring it to the front because the front is what is going to be the most important. That's what's going to be seen. So we want to make sure everything, like any kind of wrinkles here, we want to make sure all that is kind of as nice as we can get it. You can kind of give the stuff a tug underneath. I feel like that's pretty good there. Sometimes you massage it into place. You could also finger press, but I do like to actually press this part. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to press that down. And I'm not afraid of using steam either. Again, I'm shaking it like this, but I'm not like pushing super hard and moving the fabric. When I'm doing this, it's light on there. I'm not pushing down very hard. So I know that looks like you're not supposed to move it when you're pressing, but it's not really moving. It's hard to explain exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to use my tailor's clapper. I use that all the time. That kind of helps lock in some of that steam. And then this got a little wrinkled under there when I was showing you guys that back and forth motion. So I'm going to just press that again just to try to take out any of those wrinkles that we just made. All right. So this is a pretty decent little opening here. All right. Oops. All right. Okay, so now it looks like one of those Among Us characters or something, right? It's a like silly little opening. So that zipper is going to go right inside there, and we've got ourselves a nice little zipper opening. Okay. I'm going to put this to the side for a second because we're going to now grab the pockets that are going to go inside there. So one thing we forgot to talk about is liking and sharing. We are giving away some cuddle today. We're going to be giving away fat quarter pack of quilting cuddle, which is exciting. So you can have a nice grouping of fabrics. Let me grab one here. I think I have one. Let's see. Oh, here's one. So our quilting cuddle collections are coming in these great little fat quarter packs. And so all the collections have like a different number in them. They're not all exactly the same number of fat quarters, but it's a great way to get a collection and have a few different pieces of the quilting cuddle to play with. And they're perfect for making purses, small bags, big bags. So it's a really great giveaway today. So to enter the giveaway, like and share, which most of you have been sharing already, but just I forgot to mention that in the beginning. So we'll pick those at the end. We always try to pick from anybody who has shared ahead of time as well. So you kind of spread the word before we start watching. So if any of you shared when you saw the promo post, you'll be entered as well. Okay, so now we're going to keep building that pocket. So to do that, we are bringing in the zipper. So this is where we start with the zipper. But this is a relatively quote unquote easy zipper because we're not doing anything fancy with it. And I'm not even switching to a zipper foot for this one. So we've got our pieces. We've got this piece that we just worked with, and then there's 2 pieces for the actual pocket. Again, everything's been stabilized. All pieces have been stabilized in this. We're working with this green leaf quilting cuddle right now, because remember I said the lining was going to be that color. I'm a big green person, while I'm wearing green too. So I thought the fun lining would be good. So it doesn't matter the length of the zipper. They give measurements for all the zippers in the pattern itself, but for this step here, we're going to trim it off. So whatever length you have will work, as long as it's at least, I think it was 7 inches it needed to be. But again, each of the sizes has different measurements, and she does such an amazing job of being very specific. So if you're doing the smaller size, you know exactly what size zipper to use. And so you're not buying some big extra long zipper that you're not going to need all of. I just have zippers in my stash. So this one's too long, but I'm going to shorten it. All right. So we're taking this zipper pocket. And what I did also is I marked the direction of nap on mine. So right in the beginning, I see that little blue line arrow down I did up there. This here is where the SF101 overlapped, by the way. That's what that is. So when I'm doing those big sheets, it will overlap sometimes, but you don't feel any difference on the front. It's not super thick or anything, but if you're wondering what those lines are, that's what that is. So I took all the pieces and I marked right away as I was cutting them out the direction of nap. So that way I don't have to think about it later. These are squares. And so if we were really trying to figure out nap later, I'd have to be petting every single piece and figure that out. So that's a good tip too, is we just always do all of that ahead of time. All right, so we're taking this.
Is the zipper specific, number 3, or can you use a bigger zipper?
It doesn't matter. This one is number 3, but you certainly can use number 5. And that's the zipper teeth width, 3 millimeter versus 5 millimeter. The outer ones that I'm using for the outside, I'm using 5 millimeter just because I feel like they're a little bit sturdier. But for the inside pocket, that's kind of overkill. For this one, I did use 5 millimeter on the inside pocket, the same as on the outsides. But on this one, especially a smaller bag, I don't know, I feel like a small little inside pocket would be overwhelmed with a 5 millimeter zipper. But again, whatever you have is going to work here. So that's not important right now for you to worry about, you guys. Just know that you could use either one. All right, so we are going to put the pocket zipper. The piece is going to go down, and then let me put this camera back up so you guys can see what I'm doing. Sorry. So this piece is up. You can see I got the instructions going too, because I don't want to skip any steps for you guys. So this is the pocket. Now we're the zipper is going in the right, like unzipping to the right. So she's very specific with what she talks about here. So you really know that you're doing the right thing. You don't have to look at the picture and guess. So you're taking the pocket zipper and you are, let's see, so the wrong side of the zipper touching the right side of the pocket piece. So we're going to put it right down like that. And what we're doing here is we're just going to be sort of basting this in place. So I'm not going to go crazy with pins. I'm just going to put a few in. We're just going to be doing a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance here to baste in place. You can see I'm starting with actually I'm going to start even further over so that I don't have to worry about it. Because, sorry about that. I wonder if this timed out. Oh, I must have timed out. Okay. Because I have, all right, hold on one second. I wonder if it's, maybe it overheated. Like I said, this is my backup camera. So I'll switch to this one for now and we'll see what happens. Anyway, so I'm going to start with my zipper. Because this is so much longer, I'm going to start with the pole way over here. That way the pole's not going to get in my way while I'm doing this step. And so it's actually really convenient when you're able to put zippers in without the pole either attached already or just completely out of the way. So especially with bag making, that is a possibility a lot of times. So I take advantage of that where I can, just because otherwise you're having to get out your zipper foot. And even still, like even if you get the zipper foot out sometimes, you can see that that's even with the zipper foot out, the pull is in the way. If it's down here, you have to move the pull in between. So let's go over to the sewing machine. We'll show you how to sew this. Okay. So again, we're just doing a basting stitch to attach this. We're going to sew through these layers again later. So I'm not super worried about it being a perfect stitch. I'm using the same stitch, obviously, the same stitch length, but I'm just trying to get to about 1/8 of an inch. All right, that didn't quite even land on it. Sorry, I'm trying to not be in your way so I can't see as well when I'm stitching. So trim those. Get right in here. That's an 1/8 of an inch there. Okay. So I'm going to take this pin out. I don't want that to be there. You can also use your stiletto. Here's a good spot for your stiletto. Just to do a line of stitching here. And again, I'm not worried about locking the stitch there or anything because we're really coming back later and stitching over the same spot. Okay. So now you see that it's just stitched in place like that. All right, so now we're going to press the zipper to the wrong side of the leg. So we're pressing it up like this. So from this side, we're pressing this part like that seam allowance down. So do that really quickly. Pull this back. And because this one is cuddle side down, I'm probably just going to do it like that without worrying about the... Again, this isn't like, you don't need the perfect seam here pressed down. This is just getting it into place where we're going to use it later. So, get that out of the way. All right, so now that's all done there. Now we're going to grab our other piece. So remember, we had the second pocket piece. So we push that down, and then what we're going to do is I have my marking on here, so I know which way I want the pocket to go down, like this. So now put this on there like that, with the right side facing up like that. See? So now I'm just going to make sure these edges here are lining up, and this where it hits right here to match. So I'm going to put a pin here. And then make sure that matches there, and put a pin over here. And then see over here, we're just going to now stitch this down on here too. Again, you can use clips too if you want, because this is, again, not going to hold the whole thing in place forever. So we're just basting along that line there. Let's go back to the sewing machine. All right, let's do another just 1/8 of an inch. You can see I'm not using as many pins as we normally tell you to use for cuddle. And that's just because this is all sort of just basting stitches. And with the SF101 in there, it stiffens it up enough that you don't necessarily need quite as many pins as we normally would tell you to have, because the fabric doesn't shift on you as much. Okay, so now we've got our pins in there. Now we've got our things there. You can see the pockets are not the exact size, which is part of the pattern. She just has you now trim that little piece of the pocket off. So again, this doesn't have to be exact because these are going to be closed up later, but you just trim that little piece of the pocket to match it up. So again, that was part of the pattern. All right, so now we've got this just like this. What we're going to use is we're going to use I can find what I do with that. Oh, here it is over here. So now we're going to put wash away wonder tape here and here. I'm going to change to the other view because you'll see it a little better. Okay. So I'm going to put it on the top edge and this bottom edge. I'll put the wash away wonder tape. I'll show you once I get it on there. What the wash away wonder tape does, it's just a temporarily wash away glue basically that gets stuck down. I use it often with zippers. I like it because it helps the zipper stay exactly where you want it to be, so that it doesn't shift on you. Now, some people don't like to use wash away wonder tape with Cuddle because they're afraid if they put the glue part down, see how it comes, it's got little sticker tape on there right now. So when I take that off, the glue will be revealed. If you stick it onto the Cuddle, you know, it can shift on the nap of the Cuddle. Quilting Cuddle and C3, I don't have any problem with that. I don't feel like they shift too much. And if they're going to shift a little, I can also use pins to secure it a little bit better on top of the glue. I just think this really helps get everything exactly where you want it to be. Okay, so I am going to do that overhead view again, even though, like I said, unfortunately, it's not as clear as I would love it to be. It's just not focusing nicely today. So I just took the whole glue off. When you do take the glue pieces off, you want to make sure you've got it really down there. And then you're just trying to take the paper backing off. So just peel the paper off of both ends there. Now that glue is exposed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and we're just going to put it right down on top of it to expose that zipper. One thing that's important is you want to make sure that the pocket is relatively centered in there. You don't want to have any excess here or here that didn't get caught. So before I push it down too hard, I want to make sure I've got it in the right spot, if that makes sense. I am going to just, that's there. I'm going to shift it over just a little bit because I don't want to use up that glue and make that glue upset. See this part right here? That should match up pretty well with the pocket. I know it's hard for you guys to see, but the facing there should match up on the side with the pocket. And then this facing here should match up with the pocket. Mine was shifted over a minute ago. So now I can have my view here and I can push down a little bit with my fingers, kind of lock that in place. And then I am going to give it one little press before stitching just to make sure that that glue is going to hold. So again, with my pressing cloth, I'm just going to go right from the front, push down. I've got this wool mat on here, mostly just to take up some space because my ironing board is so small that the iron doesn't even want to sit on. I've got the big Oliso iron there. Okay, so now that's pretty well in place. This pocket is like pretty solidly attached. So you can see it's looking pretty good. And then that's the back of the pocket there. So that wash away wonder tape really does help it to stick in place like that. So you really locked it in. You don't have to press it down to activate that glue. It sticks anyway, but I've found it almost like dries the glue to get it to really bond well if you do press it. So I normally do try to press it when I'm done. It's not a requirement. I don't even think it's on the box itself for instructions, but that's just what I've always done. So I saw someone ask or say that they didn't know you needed to do that. But yeah, so anyway, that's ready to go. So now we're going to actually get this pocket stuck in place where it's supposed to go. So this pocket piece here, we want to pull that up and out of the way. So I'm just going to use some clips. We don't want this to get locked in stitches right now because we're just trying to stitch through that bottom layer and attach just for this pocket. Otherwise, we'd put our hand in here and that other pocket would be in the way. It'd be stitched down, if that makes sense. So we got to pull that up and out of the way. And then we're going to stitch just the bottom. I'm going to switch over to my camera again, this one over here. Okay, so now we're going to just stitch right along here. It says about 1/8 of an inch away. And this is a top stitch, but again, I'm just going to keep the same settings. I have 3.8 for my stitch length for the cuddle. All right, so I'm just going to only stitch this bottom line of stitching. And I do back up a couple stitches. You can go relatively slow. Just trying to get right on this lump here. Sorry, it's a little bit awkward where I'm standing, so may not be as exact as I like to normally get, but I'm getting there. All right, and then I'm going to back up just to reverse, just to lock those stitches in. The nice thing about the cuddle is that even though we're top stitching, the stitches do kind of get lost in the cuddle there, so it's okay to back stitch. You're not going to see the stitches as well as you would if you were using a different type of fabric. So I'm going to trim those threads on both ends. Get those threads nicely trimmed. So go there. Okay. All right, now before I stitch, let's see, did I already stitch that down? No, I want to get this where it needs to be. So I probably should have done it before there, but that side's not stitched in yet, so I can still get it there. There we go, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get this where it needs to be, but I did. Okay, so now that zipper is right there. I could have waited a I'm about to stitch right across there. So this is the time to make sure the zipper is sort of in the middle somewhere. I'm going to release that flap that I had sticking up. Okay. So now we're going to stitch along the top edge here and the sides to secure everything in place. And then when you go to stick your see, because we're just stitching the top and the sides now. All right, so same settings. I'm going to try to start my stitches on the side here about where we started the other one. Again, kind of back stitch a little bit. Should have started, so we are going over the zipper there, but that's okay. If you're using a metal zipper, you want it to be a little bit more careful to really stop the zipper in the right spot, or just be gentle as you go around the zipper. I'm not using these. This is a nylon zipper here, so I'm not as worried about it. Again, you're just going to stitch around. And this is where I was talking about. Now this is in the way here, so we got to get it out of there. Let's see how we can best get it out of there. Trying to avoid having to take it off. Let's see. So if I grab it through here, just trying to get it, there we go. Just trying to get it past so I can continue stitching without worrying about that zipper head. There we go. And then we're coming right down the side. Back stitch to secure. Okay, so now we got this pocket all set. Again, just trim the threads here. Trim it up nicely. Okay. There we go. Okay. So now we have our box all done. This pocket's looking nice here. You can put your hand through, but when you put your hand through, it's just not sewn inside. So this is where you have to decide how you're going to finish your bag. There's a few different ways, really two main ways that you can finish a bag. And it's either binding the insides together or turning it in the end. So you have a lining and you either bind the lining and the mane together on the inside and you have a cute little binding, or you have a lining of the backpack and a mane of the backpack, stitch them together, and then you turn through an opening in the lining, stitch that up later. I prefer to do the turning method mostly. It depends on what kind of bag it is. It can be a little tricky they call it birthing the bag, because you kind of like bring the whole bag through the hole of the lining. But I think it's a really nice clean finish. And then you're not fiddling with binding on the inside. Because we're working with Cuddle, and Cuddle binds so nicely because you don't have to turn under that raw edge. And especially if you're using some thicker luxe fabrics or something, you certainly could do the binding method, and she offers you both options in this pattern. But I'm going to do the birthing method, as I call it, the turning method, she says. And so to do that, first, right now, this is going to be the hole that we're going to turn through later in the lining. So we're going to turn up these ends right now so that we've got a nice opening. I'll show you what we'll do. So we're just taking these ends. I am just going to turn them up about 1/2 inch. I'm not going to use a pressing cloth for this part just because this is inside the bag for later. So I'm turning up that one, and then I'm going to turn under the other one. So just turning them both up about 1/2 inch. This is where they're going to meet each other later. And so we can hand stitch or just stitch across this little opening later. And I am just going to press that really quick just to have a thing. But it's nice that she gives you this option now so that you know to leave this open if you want to turn it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to stitch these together and this together, and we're going to leave this opening on the bottom for later. But we are going to stitch this side together. So I pull this part in these two sides together. You could also just clip it. I might use some clips. Clip or pin. You're just pinning those insides of the pocket together, and you're leaving those folded up parts together. Or folded up, I should say. See, they're folded up on the bottom there. All right, so now we'll come over here. Let's see. Someone was asking about the temperature of the iron. I have it set to, it's not a number, but it's like right at the very beginning of the cotton linen section. So it's hotter than I normally would recommend, but it works well with the Quilting Cuddle for me at least. And if this was on the outside of the bag, like the exterior, I might have used a pressing cloth right there just to make sure it didn't leave any kind of marks or anything. But I have had no problem with pressing Quilting Cuddle. All right, so I'm using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance now. This is the first time we're going out to the full seam allowance. And what I want you to see here is when we did this welt opening, remember those YV things we cut out? I want to make sure I'm going over that right now when I'm doing this stitch. This part's out of the way, but I'm going through the zipper and that V. What that's going to do is that's going to help control this section here from ever wanting to fold out. Even if we didn't top stitch right here on the side, it would still hold this welt in place. So that's just a good tip if you're ever sewing welts, to always try to see if you can get over that V when you're sewing them up. V, Y, whatever, some people call it a Y. And again, that's also right where the zipper is that you're going across, but that's fine. You can just go right across it. So pull this out. Now you're just going to clip your threads down here. And then do the other side. I'm going to do the other side without pinning because it's just the inside pocket. I'm not too worried about it. So I'm just going to do the other side without pinning. Again, I'm going to try to get right over that V. Make sure that these are lined up. One of the nice things about using all that SF101 is it really does make the cuddle so sturdy. You wouldn't want it if you were doing, you know, a really big throw or something with a luxe fiber. I mean, you're not, most of the time you want the squishiness of cuddle. So it's not a solution to not have to pin. But when you're making a bag and you want things to be a little stiffer, but still have that really soft touch to it, the SF101 is the way to go. And it makes it so that you can do something like that without pinning and not worrying about it shifting on you too much. Okay. All right, so now our pocket is fully sewn up on the sides. I've left this opening for later. And from the front, you can see, put our hand in, and we got a nice cute pocket. We can trim these zipper sides right here just to be the same shape as the inside. Find my scissors. So just kind of cut through those. They'll get caught in the seam allowance later, but I don't want them sticking out right now. So those pieces can be tossed. And then we have our nice little front, this is the lining pocket, right? So we've got the lining pocket all nicely done. All right, so just catching myself up to make sure we've gone all the way that we need to. Yep. All right, so now we're moving on to the next one. All right, so this gets set aside for right now. We don't need this piece right now. So now we're going to be talking about that little front slip pocket. That was, find those pieces now. And we're going to put our magnetic closure in. So this is also where we can have some fun with these is closures. There's lots of different types of bag closures. I'm going to use this really simple magnetic snap for that front pocket. So let me grab those pieces and I'll show you exactly what we're going to do with them. It is these two pieces here and the lining. That's for later. Okay, so let me do the overhead. Oh, let me show you really quick what it is. So this here is that pocket, and there's a magnetic snap in there. So it's the front, that slanted cute pocket that gives all that definition to the front of the bag. We're going to put that magnetic closure in now. Let's see here. Okay, so we're going to use the lining, which again, it's going to end up looking like that on the outside. I've got this quilted part here, and then this floral, and then this piece here is going to be in as the lining of that. It's that purple piece, that bellflower. So I need to get the snap here and here, because that's what's going to touch each other. It doesn't touch the outside piece, so I'm going to put that to the side. This pattern, like I said, it's great. It actually, for the lining piece, has a lining piece that's slanted one way and has a main piece, a whole separate pattern piece that's slanted the other. So you don't accidentally cut them the same direction and then not have a true lining. So I love that about this. All right, so for this piece here, we're going to line up the pattern piece, and it leaves a little hole where you're going to put your snap. So I'm going to use this as a water erasable clover marker. You could use chalk, you can use whatever. It's not going to really matter because it's not going to be seen later because that's where the snap is going to go. Remember, this part here is going to be flipped down onto there because it's the lining. So you got to kind of remember, this also has a marking on it. I already put that on there, but those are just things to remember when you're putting it together, is really thinking, wait, now which layer am I doing when, and all that. Okay, so I am going to take out my snaps now, and I'll show you how they go through. So these are just, like I said, basic magnetic snaps. And I'll show you how they work. Okay, so there are two sides to them, and they snap together and come apart. And one has like the male end that sticks up and then the female end that goes in. I like to put the male end on this part here like that, but that's personal preference. You could do it either way. So they give you this little disc that has the holes in it that the prongs are going to go through later. So what I do for that is I line this up on there. It's hard to see with this purple against the silver there, but I'm just going to mark where those prongs are supposed to go right in onto the fabric. If you can see, kind of there's a marking and there's a marking there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to slice through the layer. So I want to go through to the back because I'm going to be putting this whole thing through those two markings I just made, and then we'll clip it onto the back. So I need to make sure I've got enough clipped that it goes through. So I kind of fold it like that and see if I can get it through. There's one.
Ajaire, could you also use a sew-in magnet?
Yep, there's sew-in magnets. You don't even have to do a magnet. It can just be a slip pocket. The nice thing about this pattern, again, is she gives you so many options. So she even did mention a sew-in magnet. You could do an actual button if you wanted to. So you could sew a buttonhole on this piece, like do like an actual buttonhole where that hole is, and then put a button on there if you wanted. This is where bag making can be really fun because you can do a whole bunch of different things. So see how those prongs made it their way through? So now it's all the way through. If you were worried about fraying on your fabric, you could put like some, I got it right down here, some fray check right here on the back before you do it. But this is cuddle and it's not going to fray, so I'm not worried about it. So that little thing goes right on there, and then we're going to push these edges down and that'll secure it into place. So I'm also going to just kind of pound it down. This is a mallet. It's not like the best tool for that, but just to kind of get it into place. So you see how that nicely secure in there. And we'll do something else to this in just a minute, but for now I want to put that other end in this piece. So remember, we want this one to be facing down so it actually clasps. So it's going to go through this side. So again, we're taking our little template that it has here. We're putting it on here. And then that and that. Okay, so see how I've made the markings again. And the same thing, I'm just going to go through. I like to fold it down like this because then you know you're getting all the way through. Just a little snip. This can be the scariest part because you're actually cutting through the fabric and it's always worrying that, oh no, I'm going to cut too far or not enough. But remember that SF101 is on the back of these. So it's not going to stretch open for you. You've really got to make sure you've got it through that SF101. And there we go, it's through. Okay, again, you could put fray check if you were worried about your fabric fraying, which we are not. So we're just going to push these down again and get this one nicely in place. And then I'm just going to mallet it again. You don't want to pound too hard because, again, it's lifted there and you don't want to ruin that snap closure. Okay, so this is how it's going to look. And remember, this piece here is going to be over here, so you're not going to see the actual snap from the front. Sometimes you want those snaps visible, sometimes you don't. With these magnetic ones, they're not meant to be seen. The underneath part is not meant to be seen later. All right, so what we're going to do just to really ensure that these are going to stay in place is I'm going to bring my iron back over. And then I have a scrap piece of SF101 here. I'm going to cut it in half. Just a little scrap. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these apart. And on the back, so this is now on the back, I'm going to press a piece of SF101 over there. It's just going to kind of help keep it in place, especially on the bags I make for my kids. Like, they're really hard on these kind of things. And so just like to press that nicely into place. Again, you're seeing me shake this, but I'm not pushing it and really slamming on the fabric. it's on it, but it's kind of also hovering. I do that because I feel like it also helps to not, what's the word I'm looking for, like singe the fabric. But just make sure I got all those edges. I can see it lifting just a little bit. So I'm going to press it a little bit longer. It depends with the SF-101. Sometimes it can be 15 to 20 seconds. It's really dependent on your settings. And again, I'm using a lesser heat setting than I normally would if I was doing not cuddle. All right, so that's nicely set in place. I'm going to put this to the side. One thing to make sure is that you don't want to take this hot thing and just put it down on your mat, because it will warp your mat if you put hot things on your mat. So just your cutting mat. Just making sure it's fully, I don't want any wrinkling later, so I want to make sure it's, yep, it's fully done. All right, so then same thing with this piece. Now going to put that on there, spray it, get a little bit wet, a little bit damp, and then pressing cloth over that. And same, just kind of get that all into place. There we go. So there's lots of options. Yeah, Jackie mentioned using some Loctite. You could certainly put a little bit of Loctite on there. That will help hold it in place too. I just feel like that does a pretty good job of keeping it secure in there when you're pulling on it. And this is not a high, like a high traffic area. I'm not sure how to phrase that. I'm not opening and closing this pocket all the time. It's sort of just a fun slip pocket for the front. So yes, I'm pulling, but it's not going to happen all day, every day. So I'm not super worried about getting it fully secure on there. Some people even stitch over the secure. So really, you'll know yourself how much you're going to use that closure. If I was doing this in a wallet or something that I was opening up all the time, then yeah, I probably would put something a little more secure on there. So that's a good option. Okay, so we've got that magnetic closure in there. So we're going to continue to work on this like front pieces right now. And I'm going to do this. So just want to make sure I've got all my pieces where I need them to be. 42, 41. Putting pages to the side that I'm done with, because otherwise with paper, I'm used to doing, oh, that's the other thing. So this is a PDF pattern, which I like having it on my iPad or my computer where I can scroll through. So I'm not dealing with all these pages, because I typically get the pages all out of place. And I could have put these into like a binder or something, but I didn't bother with doing that. But I do like that I can just scroll up and down. And her pattern is great because it actually has sort of bookmarks in it, where she has these little flow arrows where if you're not going to do the slip pocket, click this arrow and jump to the next spot. So it's kind of like choose your own adventure. So she really walks you through step by step all of the different parts of it. Okay, so for the slip pocket, we are going to add binding on the one edge. And I'll show you how we do that. Now with with Cuddle, of course, we don't have to worry as much about the binding. What I'm going to do is, she tells you to base these two layers together. I'm going to spray them. I'm not going to bother basting around the edge. So we have OD 505. Let's put it to use, right? We love OD. So let me grab my little piece of plastic so I don't overspray. Here's a piece here. So I put something down because I don't want to overspray onto anything else. And then I'll put this piece down here, and then we're going to just spray baste that piece on top. We're going to be putting a binding right here. So we're really just trying to get these locked in place. This not SF-101, sorry, SF-101, OD 505, so many numbers, right? So I shake this up. This is temporary spray, so it doesn't last forever. When I wash this bag, it'll go away, but it will hold it in place really nicely. What I like about the 505 is that You know, we always talk about it being repositionable if you get it in the wrong spot. Here, I'm not as worried about that, but I also like that I can just spray it right here without worrying about the smell, not having to go outside or anything like that. So you just kind of pound that into place, and then the 2 layers should be relatively put together. And you could use, yeah, someone asked if you could use a 505 glue stick, which I use that glue stick for a lot of things. If I was doing that here, what I would probably do is put the glue stick along the top edge here and make sure those edges were secured together, because later we can come through and baste the rest of this bottom part together. But yeah, that's another good option. The 505 glue stick is great. So we have this piece here. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's the right piece. So this is a piece for binding. And again, I put my little arrow saying which way the nap is going to go. So if I want all the nap to go the same direction, we're going to have it like that. So then we're going to start sewing and we'll go like this. So we're actually going to sew from the front, often with binding with Cuddle, because we're not going to bother with finishing and turning under this other edge when we go around to the back. You'll see we'll often start on the back and flip forward to the front. But for this one, once we're done here, you'll see why I'm doing it this direction instead. I'm also going to swap out to my purple thread to match this. Oops, that might have overheated again. Just turn that off and on and we'll get that back going. But yeah, so I'm just going to pin this and clip it a little bit. Again, it's so sturdy. I'm not going to worry as much as I normally would about tons of pins and all that. All right, so I'm going to get this under the sewing machine. I am going to use the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for this. I'm going to take that one clip out and put a pin in instead because it's at the start there. All right. Oh, I forgot I was going to take that thread, put the purple thread in there instead of the green. We can come back to the green once we do the lining later. Okay, so just get this all, sorry, my arm was right in the way there. Get this threaded. I've been using my sergers so much that I forgot how nice it is to have that air threading, right? We still have to do the needles, but I do love that air threading of that Bernina serger. All right, so we got that. It's in, but it's wound around. There we go. Yep. Got our purple thread in there. Nice to match our threads. Again, I'm going to go in here and try to get in this weird angle so that you guys can see everything and I'm not in your way. All right. Get it started. I'm just going to use the stiletto to kind of guide it through. This is just a binding. That magnetic closure is here, but it's far enough away that my presser foot will still go by. Again, she kind of thought of everything with this pattern. I really like a well-written pattern. You guys may know I do pattern writing myself, and so I love her patterns for that because she really does take in all the details, you know. Okay, so I'll come back over to here so we can see. So now that's been stitched on. It's through both layers. So we're going to want to turn this to the back and then stitch it down. I am not going to bother pinning. I am just going to use some clips, pulling it to the back. So I'm going up and over this seam allowance. Just show you there. So I'm going up and over, turning it like that. I'm not going to bother, like I said, with pinning and all that because, well, I'll pin this first one just so it's in place so I can get under the presser foot. But it's really funny just how secure that SF101 makes everything. So I'm just going to kind of finger press everything in place and then use a variety of clips here to hold it down. I'm not turning this fabric under or anything. I'm just pressing in place. This is slightly different than what she has you do for binding because she's not expecting you to use Cuddle. So we're doing this a little differently. You are using vinyl or leather. So I think that's pretty cool. Not everyone will include those instructions. The problem with that is that we're doing sort of a hybrid between a standard binding and a leather binding. So it's not, doesn't really work out for us with a leather either, because that just would fold it over and stitch it down and not sew one side. And I like the security of having the one side sewn first when I do the Cuddle. So again, let me get in place here so you can see. And I'm just going to run right along this edge, catching the backing, catching the front. You will see these stitches, but they do kind of get lost in the Quilting Cuddle. Not as much as they would get lost in the C3, but I'm not worrying about being, if I was doing a cotton or something, I would be a little more perfect with my top stitches, but they do kind of get lost in that Cuddle. All right, so that's on. Clip our threads. There we go. So now what we're going to do, all right, so that's in place. Looks nice there, but the back, you can see this was too long, right? So what we're going to do is just trim that. So the same as you would do like bathing suit straps or something like that. We're just going to trim this off. And we know Cuddle won't fray. Plus it has that SF101 on it too, which if it was going to fray would kind of help with that. But also this is the inside of the pocket. So nobody's really going to be looking in there at all. So I'm less worried with it being the inside of the pocket. You could certainly trim this ahead of time and then stitch it down. You could stitch it to the back, bring it around to the front like we normally do our bindings. You would just shorten this binding strip, make it smaller in the first place. So again, that's Cuddle. So I'm going to just vacuum that up real quick to make sure. Oh, there we go. So that's the back. And then that's the front. I mean, it makes a pretty nice little slip pocket there. Okay. Just trying to show you guys how that looks. I just think that bellflower looks so pretty with this Quilting Cuddle on there. Debbie, it's okay. She says she's really late. That's all right. This is there's a replay of this. You can watch it later too, and you can always watch if you decide to go out and get the pattern yourself. You could rewatch too, just to see any of the changes that we make. All right, so that's all done for now, and now we're going to move up to that front zipper panel. So remember, the front. This is going to be attached here, right? We're not going to base that in place or anything yet, but that's going to be there. And then we're going to have this guy on top with a zipper in between. So this is where we start getting into some of the fun zipper stuff. So I'm going to take this piece off and put this to the side. Right now to the side, I have the inside front pocket of the lining, and then I've got this piece here. We just put those to the side. We're not going to use them right now. And then we're going to start talking about adding in the zippers. Okay, so here's my little bag of goodies here. I have some zipper length here. I think I was prepping it for a bag one time and I put the zipper pull on it, but I'm going to use this anyway because I didn't end up using it then. And I am not going to worry about the length right now because again, I can trim that later. So this one is all ready to go to use. I'm going to save the long one for the zipper, main zipper of the bag, the whole outside. This one I'm going to use for this zipper on here now. So we're going to do very similar to what we did for that inside. Let me think, for attaching the zipper to the pocket of the inside there that we did before. So we're going to take this zipper. We want it to open to the right. Really, that's personal preference. You could have it open either way, but I'm just going to have it open to the right like this. For now, I'm going to kind of put this out of the way so it's, you know, longer than what I need. But that's the way I want it to go. So we're going to, if I want to go in that way, I'm going to do this. So this is that lower panel that has the quilting on it. I'm lining this up top edge. Now again, I'm just going to be basting this in place. I know it's a little fuzzy for you, so bear with me. I'm just going to baste this in place. So I'm just going to be clipping it down here, okay? These stitches are not the most important, so I'm not worried about tons of pins or anything like that. Just get it nicely clipped in place. Now I'll go over to the sewing camera where you can see a little bit better what we're doing. All right, so we're going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to get this zipper basted into place. Take these out as we go. Now this goes a little bit slower because it's sort of floating where this presser foot is on the zipper. That's a thicker zipper. This is now a 5mm zipper. Remember, Lisa asked me before what size we were using. So this is a 5mm zipper, so it's thicker there, but it's going along. You could certainly swap out to a zipper foot here if you wanted to, but I'm just basting, so I'm not too worried about it. It seems like it's going along pretty well, so I didn't bother with like, it's kind of a pain to swap the feet, so I do when it becomes important, but in this step, I did not feel like it's super important. Okay, so we'll go back over here. So now we have that zipper. Looks good there. I do see a little clippy there. I want to clip that guy. There we go. Okay, so now the lining of that bottom piece. I've got this piece here for a lining for this. And we're going to put it right down on top of there. It's going to get flipped down to the back as a lining later. But for now, I'm just going to put it right down on top of here. And then I'm going to flip this over because I like the sturdiness of the zipper being up. This is going to be a real seam here. We're going to really use a 3/8 of an inch here. So I like to lock it in place a little bit better. This isn't just a basting seam now. So I am making sure everything's going to nicely line up there. And then I am going to use some pins. I'm kind of diagonally feel like that might be overkill here. These go in pretty easily. I love using wash away wonder tape for zippers, but for here, I think we're fine without it. So I'm going to go back to the camera here. Let's get going here. Get it right underneath there at that 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And now my presser foot is on top of that zipper now. So it actually goes a little bit easier, if you believe it or not. Like it's not floating like it was in the previous step. So you want to be careful. It is a metal zipper, so you don't want to get down into the teeth. Unless you're going slowly and you're planning to go under the teeth, but you don't want to accidentally snap your needle. We're just stitching along at that 3/8 of an inch, taking out our pins as we go. And then, there we go. that. All right. We still have our purple thread in there because we're still working with all that purple fabric. All right, so now we've got that zipper nicely sewn in. It looks like that. So we're going to press that. I am going to actually press it too. I'm just kind of using my fingers right now. But then we'll press it down and then we'll top stitch across. So we actually pull this over and press it. I'll do it from the back. Since I'm doing it from the back, I'm not going to worry with the pressing cloth. But just kind of getting it in position. If I was doing in the front there, I might use a pressing cloth because this is the front of the bag. Really just want to lock in some nice and strong there. Here's my tailor's clapper. I like to use the tailor's clapper to really lock in. It helps to get everything nice and smushed in there, if that's the right word for it, right? Smushed. All right, I'm just gonna show you guys. I know that camera view is not the best, so I don't like to be on it for too long. So we're going to top stitch across this now. Again, this little guy is out of the way for now. We don't need it there yet, so I'm not worried about him getting in the way. I have my purple thread still in there, so that is going to top stitch really nicely onto this. I'm just going to go over there and do that now. Okay. You could clip this or pin this down. I'm not really going to bother with all of that. I want to do it from this direction. What do we think? I'll do it this way. So I can kind of see better. Yeah, let's do that. Sorry, it's hard to see what I'm doing here from the view I'm sitting in, just so you guys can see. So hopefully this doesn't end up too wonky. Just trying to, I'm kind of watching the side of the foot here and that side of the zipper, making sure it gets through that thickness. So you could hear that it fights a little bit there at the thickness. So it's getting thicker, but it's still not bad. Machine goes over it just fine. And my walking foot in, as we always talk about using a walking foot. All right.
Ajaire, we had another question about the temperature of the iron.
Yep. Okay, so mentioned it before, but I'll show you. I'll actually look right at the top here. Hold on. Okay, so this is the Oliso, and it's pretty much on the linen and cotton setting there. And I do have some steam up, and I have water in it. I'm not afraid of the steam, but again, if you were doing the front of the bag, I might not have actually pressed right on. I probably would have used my little pressing cloth. If I was lower setting, I wouldn't worry about it at all, like if I was down toward the wool. But I've got a lot of steam because that's thick in layers there with that SF101. But yeah, it didn't do anything. That's the part I did press on, and it still looks nice. You can see when you pet it, it still has its shapes and everything. I'm not the shape, the color it's supposed to be. There's no messing up. So. All right, so we have this part done. Pretty little bag. Now we just have to put these pieces on top. It's pretty much the same for this part. We do, this part here is going to be on top there like that. So what I do here, I want to make sure I line everything up. This is important. Right here at this edge, I don't know if you can see my pin. I want this pin up here to be landing right where that is. And what I'm doing is just marking. This is a black zipper, so you can't really use a marking as well in it. You could use a gray Sharpie or silver Sharpie, but I find it's just as easy to do a pin. I also mark the centers of these pieces. So there's a little snip there. And there's also, well, you can't see on those pieces now, but there was a snip there. So what I'll do is I will match these two edges, match the pins, and then I just finger press my way over to find what is pretty much the center here. And I'm going to put another little pin right where the center is. So we're just trying to make sure this top is going to be nicely centered. Because if you get finished with this and then the top is askew over here, it's not going to work. So you want it to be nicely centered so the bag has the shape it's supposed to have. So now, with that being the center, I can mark that pin right where it's supposed to go on this one. And then I'm going to pin that end because I see that it meets that pin, so I can take that one out and walk along, and that one meets nicely at that pin. It's just a way to make sure that you're getting this piece in the spot where it should go. All right, so we should be doing the inside layer too. We should be basting them together, but I am just going to stitch them both now. Where's that little piece? I just find my little purple lining piece here. All right. It's not in the bag. I thought it might have accidentally got put back in the bag already. Got so many little pieces. Okay, so we got this one, those, that. Where are you, little purple piece? It's always the little piece that gets missing. Here, let me move to this camera so because I know it gets blurry. Let's see if I can find that little piece here. If not, oh, here it is. Is this it? Nope, that's a different one.
There's nothing like looking for a needle in a haystack. And so
of course, right? And of course, you know, I've got a giant haystack here of pieces and everything else. So these are the ones. That's that. I had them inside that bag all ready to go, but then I took them out so I could show you all the parts earlier. And it probably fell out when I did that. So let's just take a peek around. I don't want to cut a new one with it's here, but I can always cut. Oh, there we go. Found it. Okay. So this is just the inside piece for that. So we're going to skip ahead in these steps to make sure I'm in the right spot. All right. And then there we go with that. Okay. So I'm just going to pin all this together now. I'm not going to do that basting step. So remember, on the bottom, we basted the front on and then came back and did the top. What I'm going to do is I've got the top in place. That's the right side of the fabric. This is the lining. So I'm just going to line up, again, matching the two centers. And then matching the ends here. I'm not going to bother with the basting step. We're just going to breeze through this part. Hold on. There we go. Because again, the SF101 is making the fabric so nice and secure that I'm not worried about it slipping. And I'm not worried about it not lining up just right. I'm going to stitch it from the top main side so that because that's the side I'm primarily concerned with looking really, really nice. So again, I got my pins in there and we'll just stitch that down. Okay. So I'm going to use the full 3/8 of an inch seam allowance here instead of doing that basting first. So we'll see. We'll see if I regret it in the end. This is how you'll normally see me stitching at home. Not too many pins. With Cuddle, I pin a lot, as I always tell you guys, because it really does help to keep everything together. But that stabilizer locks everything in so well. And I use the stiletto just to kind of push everything to the side, making sure that sandwich is nice and thick That zipper should be caught right in the middle of that cuddle sandwich. There we go. Let's see how we did there. Okay, come back over here to this view. So that's our top. This is the lining. So that looks nice there. Oh, it's so pretty. I think that's just so pretty together. All right, so that looks nice to me. I am going to press it very quickly and then just top stitch that in place. So the same thing we already did for the other one. Once again, I'm going to do it from the back and just kind of give it a, let's do it this way. Just nicely like
Here,
that.
did I see a walking foot on your machine?
Yep, walking foot for sure. That's going to help you, you know, with the fabric not wanting to move around on you. I mean, I keep saying how secure that SF101 makes it, but I will tell you, I use my walking foot even when I'm using, you know, other cottons and stuff, right? I mean, we use walking feet all the time with quilting and stuff. So it's not just for keeping cuddle sturdy, right?
Right. I never take mine off, actually.
I know. To do zipper foot, which is part of why I don't bother with the zipper foot for some of these steps, because I don't have a walking zipper foot. So I have to weigh, is the walking foot going to go right on top of that zipper and glide along nicely, or is it going to be impeded by the zipper? And if I put the zipper foot on, is it going to be impeded by the cuddle not feeding through, right? You know, so it's just weighing either one. So there's times when I do and then times when I don't. So this is one where I just didn't find it necessary to put that zipper foot on because I don't want it to become an issue later. All right, so I'm going to just top stitch this down right close to the edge. I'm still using the purple thread. I feel like purple, similar to gray, kind of ends up going with most things. And this print has so much purple in it that it's going to kind of just disappear into the fabric. So let's see if I'm correct about that assumption. We'll see how it looks. I think it's going to look nice. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, see how that it just sort of disappears, that stitch kind of disappears to the black thread or anything for that step. Okay. So there we have the front zipper. So now when you undo your zipper, you can see the two pieces separate. So it's not really a pocket yet, but it is a zipper. So now we need to get a piece of fabric to put behind that. So let's see. Make sure I'm in the right spot. So, yep, use the lining. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. I can show this upper camera. Okay, so we've got this is our front here. And then we need one of the linings. So let me find one of the green big linings. So now that's a lining. And that's going to go face, like the right side is going to face this because it's the lining of the pocket, if that makes sense. So we want that to be visible here. We have on the back of here, which is the actual lining, remember, is this whole pocket situation, right? So let me show you up here. Kind of putting all these layers together now. So that's the lining with the pocket we already put in. And then this is a lining so that when I go to do my zipper, it has something there. Does that make sense? I could have done this particular lining piece in purple, but I kind of thought it'd be fun to have that pop of green when you open the zipper. So these are the components that are going to make up the front of the bag, the whole front assembly. So I'll show you now. We are on, we have this, and then we have this on top of here. And then we have our other guy we put aside, which is this one, right? And that's our snap one. Snap that into place. So these are all the pieces that we're now going to baste all the way around the edge and secure together. Does that make sense? We want these pieces to all become one big piece. Not this piece here yet. This is off to the side still. That's not there, but this is going to just become the front. And you can see it gets pretty thick. That's part of why when I did this quilting, I didn't add any foam or anything in there to really make it stand up. I didn't want it to be super thick there. So what I'm going to do now is put in some clips to get the layers all together so we can baste them together. I'm going to take those two. I have these little clips that I've made, these little slits at the centers of everything to really make sure that we line it all up nicely. To really be able to know where those where all those centers are to keep it all stable.
Are those notches in the pattern?
Say it again.
Are those notches in the pattern?
The notches aren't in the pattern. What I did was I took the pattern pieces and I folded them to find where the center was, and I made a notch. In all of those patterns, I made them there, and then in the other pieces as well. I just wanted to make sure I had some notches to go by. So I do that right in the beginning. I mean, we certainly could now just find our centers, but I like to kind of make a notch so that I know that center is there for later. All right, so I'm just trying to make sure all these line up. And if they're, see how those are slightly off? It's okay because we do have plenty of seam allowance in this to play with. So it's going to work out in the end. So I'm just kind of making sure that nothing is twisted in there. That's going to be the most important thing. Yeah, so everything's going to be nice and flat. So right now I'm just doing this slit pocket piece. I'm going to baste this on first, and then I'm going to baste the whole thing onto that other lining piece. It'll help us to separate these layers and just do the one at a time to make sure that it's going to all be nice. All right. All right, so I'm just going to, I'm saying baste, but I'm using that same stitch length. I'm not bothering to change the stitch length at all because with Cuddle, it's all going to end up kind of being the same stitch length. Even if you bump it way up, it ends up still being pretty narrow just because it takes a bit of time to get through the whole layers. All right, but I'm not trying to get any more than like maybe 1/4 of an inch around. Not trying to go the full, it's a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm not trying to use the full 3/8. Just securing everything together. I don't want to use any kind of basting spray here though, because this, I want them to be able to be separated later. They don't need to be actually basted to each other like the front piece here did when I did that binding. Those were never going to be separated. Those were two pieces that needed to be together. So even though they'll wash out later, I wasn't worried about temporarily spray basting them. I don't want to do that with the inside of any of these pockets because I don't want to have to wash it before we use it. And if this was all spray basted down, then I would have to wash it to get that spray base out, you know, if that makes sense. So that's the reason I did it once, but I'm not doing it here. While I'm here, I'm also going to stitch right across that the zipper, so I make sure that it is staying together nicely for the next step, because I am going to stitch the other lining over it. So just while I was there, I might as well secure that down too. All right. So now I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay. Oops. All right. So this slip pocket has now been basted. So I'm going to trim this edge here. I'm not going to trim the zippers yet, but I'm just going to make sure these edges are nicely trimmed before putting the next layer down. All right, so now this is, again, face up here. This on the back here. And this time I'm going to baste all the way around because I want all the layers to be together. So again, I'm matching up my little notches that I made. They weren't necessarily in the pattern, but I made them. And then there are some notches on the side here too. Match up that notch there. Pattern, after you're done with this front part, before you're putting it onto this backing, this lining here, she does say to measure it against the pattern, because when you do this zipper, it could grow a little bit either way depending on how accurate you were. So you can take the pattern piece and actually trim this front a little bit before you do the next step. Mine matches pretty well, so I'm not going to bother with that. I feel like it's worked out well. But that is nice that she mentions that in there, because you could be confused as to why your piece might be slightly off. And it's natural to happen because everything's sort of shifting that space there, really depending on how close you are to your zipper. All right. So now I'm going to stitch this down. Let's see. Here we go. All right. It doesn't really matter. I'm using less than 3/8 of an inch again. So about 1/4 of an inch. A little more than 1/8 of an inch, just because I want to make sure I'm really getting through all the layers. And then here we're going to be going over the zipper, so we just want to make sure we really get over those zipper teeth nicely. Let's get all the way around this edge. It's so spongy and squishy in here right now, which I love feeling. Like it's going to just be such a nice finish on this bag. Okay. All right, going over that zipper again. So just take care over the zipper. Again, that's a metal big, 5mm zipper, but the needle goes right over it. You just want to go a little slow. You don't want to be smashing your needle in there and accidentally breaking your needle. Okay. So here's our finished bag front. We've got the lining in there, but again, that's just the pocket lining at this point. That's not considered the actual lining piece. It's just the pocket lining. Again, with zippers, this is a great place to feature a zipper. You can get nice zipper tapes at your quilt shops. Lots of local shops will have these kind of zippers now. You can pick out actual fun zipper pulls, like different things like that. But even the zipper teeth, they've got some really fun rainbow ones now. So if you're going to have a zipper on the front of a bag like that, like this, it's a great spot to really highlight something fun. So this one's just a simple gold, but I like the look of that. I think it looks really nice with the floral and with the purple. All right, so now I'm going to trim the edges of the zipper there. I'm not going to go through the metal teeth with my nice Karen K. Buckley. I bet some of you were worried when you saw me get out those nice scissors. I'm not going to use it for that, right? I almost did. Those are the things we would go crazy over, right? I don't want to be ruining my precious scissors. Okay, so we got this. Like I said, it's so soft and squishy. And then we've got, eventually those are going to go together when you open up the bag. Just want to remind you guys, this is that big bag that we did. We got the whole outside of the bag. That's the zipper we put in this one. Oops, sorry, I'm opposite here. And then this is that, it's hard to see. This is the magnetic closure there. So that's the front. And then inside, that's where that zipper pocket inside is, right? So we've now finished the whole front side of the bag. So I see we are at pretty much 2 hours already. Obviously, this is taking a long time. I'm wondering what we should do, if we should stop for today and do a second one, or if we should keep going. I'm not sure what we should do because this is taking quite a bit of time. I think I wanted to go through all the steps with you because I think a lot of that stuff is stuff you'll repeat with other bags. It was not all the, as you saw, we didn't even put the 2 zippers in the same way. We did them a little bit differently. So I think it's worth seeing all of that in the beginning. The rest of it does go a little bit faster, but there is still quite a bit left to do with the zipper gusset that I'd like to show you, but we don't like to get super long. So yeah, I just heard from Ginger, let's do a separate video for this. So I will post in these comments pretty soon here. We'll get a schedule for that. And we'll find a time to do the rest of it. I won't work on any more of this part of the bag so you guys can see exactly this one finish out. But I don't want it to be, super duper long here for you guys all watching with us now. Now, I will say, if you have questions for that next part, put them in this chat right now. I will go back and look at this and we can answer even more of those questions in the part 2 as we do it. What do you think, Lisa? Should we come back for part 2?
I think so. I think it would be really nice if everybody downloaded the pattern and put it up to you and then finish it with you.
Oh, that actually be really fun. Yes. So we'll get our heads together and we'll find out a good time to do a part 2. We do these lives every Tuesday, but we do different ones at different times of the month. This 4th Tuesday of the month, we're focusing on bags right now. So I don't know that we'll push it all the way to 4 weeks from now because we do have one scheduled. We could shift some stuff, but we'll talk about it. I'd like to get you back to you guys before 4 weeks so we can finish this bag. But we'll get it on the calendar. Now, next week is the 1st Tuesday of the month. So I believe we are doing, yes, we're doing a sew together. So it's a sew together live like this, but it's not a bag. It's focused on anything cuddle. I believe it's Sheila. I think Sheila Ryan's going to be doing a fun Valentine's Day craft with you. It's National Embroidery Month, I believe, in February. And so I think she's doing something fun on her with some embroidery. So I might be wrong about that, but that's in my recollection what's happening. So definitely come back next Tuesday to check that out. And in these comments, we'll get you guys in tune about when we can get back to do the part 2. So ask away in the comments any of your questions. And thanks to Jackie, who's been out in the comments too today. I know she's been helping answer actual comments out on YouTube. And questions as they came up. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys again soon.